Good morning and good luck in your senior year. I'm Mark Halperin, along with Dan and Sean, to talk to you about the morning meeting. I feel my camera's a little bit off, so allow me to adjust it live on the program. Thank you for being part of Two Way. This program is based on the network news division's morning meetings. We call it the morning meeting. I'll run through the daybook with Dan and Sean. We'll kick things around, and then we'd love your participation. If you're here on the Two Way platform, please raise your hand. We'd love to get some new folks in. And romper room style, I see some new people out there. So if you've never raised your hand, today's the day. Lots going on, and we'll talk about it here as we head towards Holy Week.
We don't head towards it. We are in Holy Week. We've begun the Triduum.
Yes.
But
thank you
I'll
for that
handle
correction.
that part of the show. How's that?
That's good.
John, did you give anything
division
up
of
for
labor.
Lent? Do you give up something?
I give up a lot of, yes. Well, it's not that I give up. I refrain from alcohol and sweets. And then what I try to do is, in the spirit of almsgiving, fasting, and prayer, try to add things so that I become much closer and holier. What about
a low sugar non-alcoholic beer? Can you have that if you're doing no alcohol and no sweets? No?
I mean, there are plenty of Catholics that that adhere to you get Sundays off, and you can. I go hardcore, man.
Well, but again,
I think that explains the feistiness the last few days here.
Yeah, we're getting to the
alcohol,
end.
No sugar. All right.
Yeah, this is. I mean, and we are in the Triduum, so that there is some, again, a little bit of gray area where some believe that because you now could go back, but I do think that it's somewhat unholy to Unholy Thursday or Good Friday go back on what you've given up. Saturday, I think, is probably fair game.
All right, I'm a good American Catholic. Yep. I don't give anything up.
Yada, 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 no smack in the chat. Yada, 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 peace, love, and understanding. Yada, yada, yada. Please extend the presumption of grace to all. White House today, the president's greeting the leader of Italy. So it's Italy Day at the White House. Hopefully the White House mess is serving pasta. Let's look at the pool real quick. Sorry. Interesting. Two of the organizations in the pool caught my eye. Not favorites of the White House necessarily, The Atlantic and NPR. So again, whether this is all some clever play or whatever it is, you'll notice that there is no print pool made up of, in the new policy, the Associated Press, Reuters, and Bloomberg. But again, you'll notice that you can't say they're not letting people, news organizations they disagree with in the pool, because the Atlantic and NPR there. Sean.
Well, yeah, and again, just to be clear, what they did was there used to be a separate category for wire. So you see their print, the Atlantic, and then there would be a separate category, which, by the way, all the wires, Reuters, the AP were constantly in, and they basically said, okay, if you guys want to insist that you have to be in, we'll make it one category. We'll put 33 people in it, and then we'll rotate all 33. So it was sort of, I view this as a checkmate moment for the White House. The AP thought that it outsmarted the White House, and they said, okay, great, we'll let you back in once every 33 days.
You're right. So they're back in court today at the Court of Appeals, Associated Press lawyers. And to Sean's point, it's going to be a challenge for any judge to micromanage how the pool works, right? It just that's not like a judicial function. I would love if Jeffrey Goldberg took the pool slot today. I think that'd be amazing. I don't know who's taking it for the Atlantic, but
I do wonder if he's credentialed. That's the.
He could be cleared in. He can be cleared in.
Well, they'd have to, right? But they would have to clear him in. They would know that. I have a feeling, by the way,
they might welcome it. They might welcome it, though.
Yeah, he could just signal his friends. I have a feeling
that if that happened, that's sort of that is a fun way to end your White House staff career day.
Well, or unless the president says, you know what?
Yeah, right.
I'd love to spar with Jeffrey Goldberg.
Yeah,
in any event,
around. Yep.
The Italian prime minister shows up at noon. President greets her, and then bilateral lunch, closed press. Then there's a bilateral meeting with the pool in the Oval at 1:05. They're only allowing an hour for lunch. So presumably if there's a pasta course, there's no cannoli or whatever at the end. And then at 4 o'clock, the president closed press, signs executive orders. We'll see what happens there. Lots of rumors abounding about some of today's executive orders. I'm not at liberty to share, but that one could well open up is all I'll say.
Topics like general.
I do, but I'm bound by some confidentiality just to point people to 4 o'clock. That's all I can say. Don't know what, Sean, you know what your neighbor, the vice president who sold his house, is doing today?
Is he getting ready to leave for his trip? I think he's.
I don't quite understand. I don't quite understand why the Italian prime minister is here in the United States today, and then JD Vance is going to Italy to see her. I'm a little confused by that.
Well, hold on.
Federal government
wait,
paying for spring break a little bit?
No. Well, first of all, spring break, just to be clear, because his kids, I do know his kids' spring break schedule. It starts today after Mass. So,
correct. They're taking him on a great family vacation at my expense to Italy and India.
Just to be clear, so that we do some geographical kabuki dance here. The Italian prime minister may be here, but there's also technically another country located in Italy.
Although he's not scheduled to see the Pope, he's scheduled to see like the Pope's secretary. But maybe he'll see
I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I understand.
You're asking why.
I understand. And again, if this were Kamala Harris taking her kids on spring break at my expense, people would be outraged. So I'm a little outraged. Just let him pay for his own spring break. He's a rich guy. All right, let's start with Meloni. The headlines are calling her the Trump whisperer. Various people are calling her the Trump whisperer, and there's some question about is she meeting with the president on behalf of Italy to get a better deal for Italy, or is she there as the EU leader along probably with Macron, who's the closest to the president? So first question, Sean,
I will say this. I don't understand. I get that speculation. That creates, I mean, they're part of the EU. I don't know how they have a trade commissioner.
Well, you're saying she's there, of course, not for the EU, or that means she is
there?
No.
I mean, my point is that you can't, again, I can't say I was the assistant U.S. trade rep and dealt with the EU commissioner. So I'm well aware of how they do business, but I have a hard time thinking that Italy could say, oh, by the way, we did a carve out for Italian wines or something. It's just not.
Why?
Because you're part of the EU.
Yeah, but she's also, I mean, so. Well, let me start with you on this, Sean. How did she become the Trump whisperer? Like, why does Trump, assuming it's true, why does Trump like her so much?
Well, it's the same like Bolsonaro, there's people that sort of have developed a relationship with him, have a kinship with him.
But what's it? But is it ideological? Is it personal? Like what is
both? It's a combination of both. I mean, I think Macron, like for example, just to give, is more personal. I think in the case of Meloni, it's more of it's a little bit of both. Ideologically, there's a kindred fighting spirit, sort of the Italian America First equivalent of, fighting for those kind of, I mean, so I think it's a little of that.
Okay. Long story.
Italian clothes. Yep.
Yeah. Long story in the New York Times, 110, please, where they interviewed European leaders, unidentified. The whole story is based on background quotes from European leaders and then quotes from think tankers and the like. And the story is interesting. It basically says you can maybe get meetings with the Commerce Secretary, the Treasury Secretary, the National Security Advisor, but Europe has reached a conclusion that it doesn't matter. No one can speak for the president, and the only way to get anything done is to speak directly to the president. Dan, thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's such a fascinating story because it also, said that in private, Trump officials are much softer and talk about their support for NATO and there's support for the EU more broadly. And, they've reportedly tried to reach out and get meetings to kind of talk, specifics on tariffs. And they've essentially been rebuffed or kind of talked into a different corner. So, I mean, it goes to this idea of who is in charge and what is the desired outcome. And I think everyone around the world just wants to know those answers so then they can sit at the table. And even the talk about Japan, the big progress, I thought it was fascinating. The follow-up is they're going to meet in a month. That's not a lot of urgency to get a point on the board. It's like, well, you go to your corner and I'll go to ours.
Surprised me as well. Sean, I would think the president would love a story that says no one matters but him.
He does. And I'm sure I don't know. To be honest, these are one of these stories where I'm kind of like, I woke up today and Fire Festival 2 is apparently delayed. And I'm like, who found that surprising? The idea that somehow people are shocked that the president is the ultimate decider after 10 years in, I'm a little concerned about what else you don't know. If you're a reader of the Times and that was your what alerted you to that.
Right.
I don't think
that. How do you negotiate, Sean? How does he do 85 trade deals essentially himself? Like if everything ultimately has to go, like it's micromanaging every trade deal, which is complicated. They're messy. There's lots of pieces. They have their audiences. We have ours. how does he do that if he's not going to delegate this?
No. There's a difference. I think that he is delegated, but ultimately he's the decider. And I don't think that that should be a surprise on any policy issue.
Is he the decider, or is he like, I mean, there's one thing to say, like, here's the bill, yay or nay. It's another thing to be like, I want gold on, the mantle. I want this earned, this earned.
He's the decider, he's the closer, and he's a high functioning individual. That's what he said. All right, so we'll talk more about it. I'll just note as we move to the next topic that there is no bilateral two and two press conference, but we have one of these things in the Oval that could go on for 2 hours or 2 minutes. We'll see. The president this morning, a few hours ago.
By the way, I will say this as a guy. I think traditionally, as you know, it wasn't like you get a big pool spray at the beginning, and what you would get is that 2 and 2. I actually, if I were a member of the media, I think that the way they're structuring now is better information, greater access, longer than your traditional 2 and 2. I think I'm not sure that the foreign minister or head of state is particularly excited about sitting there watching this wheeling and dealing happen.
I think it's a trade-off. I'm less concerned about the media or the president, frankly, and I'm more concerned about the public interest. And the public interest is a little bit of a trade-off because there's a chaos to it, and there's a capacity for the president to pick and choose what he wants to answer. That's in some ways greater than a 2 and 2, but in other ways, as you said, they tend to go on longer. There tends to be more back and forth, and that can yield more questions. There's less likely to be, of course, to be questions now from anybody but the American press. So the president doesn't have to sit through some Italian reporter asking him a question or asking an Italian leader a question.
Well, the other part of that, Mark, is he tends to have his whole team with him. And so he can tag team people.
Yes, and call on other people. That's right. So it's different. It's not better in every way, but it is better in some ways, as Sean said. 113, the president this morning went on Truth Social and had a long and somewhat zigzaggy post on the Fed. I think the most important sentence and the one that's getting the most attention, and this is in the wake of Chairman Powell's speech in Chicago yesterday, is Powell's termination cannot come fast enough. Of course, the president treats the Fed like he treats the dollar and everything else, things that past presidents chose not to comment on. He's fine to comment on. Sean, if the president wants Powell gone, which this tweet suggests he does, or this post suggests he does, will he drive him out?
Yes.
How soon?
I think look, there is definitely some. I think the question in my mind is kind of like the FBI director, which in that case was a 10-year term, and Christopher Wray decided that it was easier to just do this. My question is, does Jerome Powell choose to fight or not? I mean, there is question about, it's never been tested. So what would happen in court? How would the court ultimately rule? Do you want to put yourself through there? My guess is that if the president chooses to, he will make it clear. And then do you think that post suggests he's going to now try a concerted effort to drive Powell out, or it's a one-off to just kind of discombobulate and intimidate him? I don't even know that it's to intimidate him. I think it's to let people know, like, I'm fighting for this. This is ridiculous. I'm doing it. I mean, I'm not sure.
I'm asking you a simple question. Do you think this is the beginning of an effort to use whatever means necessary to drive him out or not?
No, I don't think it's that far yet. I mean, my point is, I think this was partially a PR thing more than it was to let people know, hey, I'm pissed off at Jerome Powell and the Fed, and I'm going to let everyone know that, I may do it. But if he wants to fire him, he'll get it done right now. My guess is that it's going to take one more meeting of the Fed. And if they don't do something that moves in his direction, or if things are going south in another way, then he's going to say, we got to replace the Fed and change things up. But I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah, I think Powell's overrated. I'm surprised at how popular he is with various Fed stakeholders. Dan, will the Democrats...
know that do you think it's Powell that or it's almost like when he fired Comey. I think it's almost like I'm for whatever he's against.
I totally agree with that.
In terms of Trump, but what I'm saying is Democrats, Republicans on the Hill seem to like Powell. The banking community seems to like him. I don't think he's that good at the public facing parts of the job. I don't understand that.
Well, but I mean, look, but at the end of the day, our economy has essentially been better than the rest of the world and gotten through a pretty tumultuous period coming out of COVID, then inflation. And look, the Fed has a dual mandate. Inflation and employment are the two things. And sometimes they're at odds. I think this is such a classic Trump temper tantrum I mean, the fact that he said he can't come fast enough, be a man and fire him, because it's you have the power. So if you're like the guy's terrible, then like roll up your sleeves and do it. But he's not, because to your point, Sean, he wants an enemy to blame. And Trump is all about win today's headline and figure out tomorrow's defeat tomorrow. Like, I'll deal with it. And that's not the Fed's job.
Right. So X continues to be filled, as does my message box, with different economic experts largely from the establishment saying, right before our eyes, even though the coverage has moved on a bit, Trump is ruining the world economy and the American economy. And they marshal various theories and statistics to make that point. Here's one that multiple people have sent me, and it's caught my eye. This would be the tourism one, number 107. Okay. I don't know why tourists are not coming to the United States now, whether they're hostile to America or they think they'll be attacked, or they just they're worried about the money. But you can see, and it's a little bit hard to read, but you can see these are airport, arrivals into the United States, and you can see the trend plunging downward. This is a problem because, of course, many communities in the United States rely on money from tourists. State governments rely on the taxes that those folks pay, and cities check into a hotel and pay some crazy tax, resort tax, whatever it is. So, and I can tell you that in governors' offices, including Republican governors' offices, they are well aware that this is happening and the dangers of it. So we've seen, for instance, after 9/11, we've seen presidents do things to promote tourism and say, please come to America. Dan, if you were the Commerce Secretary or the head of the Tourism Association, what would you be asking Donald Trump to do to try to turn that around?
Well, I think I don't think the economy is necessarily as bad as some people are doom and glooming it. I do think there are worrying signs out there. I think this is similar to what we talked about yesterday with these trade deals, which is it's really hard to kind of, as Sean very passionately made the case for yesterday, kind of all the ways we've been wronged, all the problems in the world, and kind of be very aggressive and then turn around and say, but we love you and we welcome you and like come to Vegas. And people feel like
why do you think they're not coming? Why do you think people are canceling their trips?
Well, look, I can't say for sure, but
what speculate away? I don't know.
I mean, look, would you want to go somewhere where they're constantly saying, like Canadians, where you're belittling our government?
If they had Disney World and the Miracle Mile in Vegas, sure, I would. Major League Baseball, New York City.
Look, you see stories in Canada. You see the Canadian government kind of saying, we are proud people. We're not going to take this. We're not going to be bullied. And it's anecdotal, but in these stories, you hear like Canadians saying, I don't want to be in Florida right now. Like
it's not just anecdotal. The data is there.
Well, I know, but you said like, I mean, I don't know for sure why someone makes a decision, but
Sean, should the president be tourist director in chief and try to convince people to come, given how big a part of the American economy that is?
I was just looking up the exchange rate to the euro. I mean, it actually seems like a good deal to come right
Yes,
now.
It is a good deal to come.
So, I mean, look, I also looked at that chart. It seems like there's been the last month. I think some of it, and depending on the country, that chart up on the right, if I recall, was Mexico. I have a feeling that there's a little bit of a concern there. I get that one. On the Europe one, I think that there's probably a little bit more to look at why, but I think trends, you got to look at what the underlying causes are. I mean, I think it's one thing for certain countries that might have a fear of immigration coming in and being deported or something. But I think there's also a little bit more that we've got to figure out before. If I were, to your point, the Commerce Secretary, I'd be saying, get me more data. What's going on? The exchange rate looks good. Why is this an issue? But I mean, before I were to jump in and speculate, I think that's got the U.S. travel and other major organizations probably have pretty solid data on that.
Yeah. All right. Let's move to our daily update on Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the most famous deportee in the world currently. Yesterday, the White House introduced new information, which I wonder if they've had that all along. If they didn't, it seems not great. If they had it and sat on it, also seems not great. But in any case, information about accusations from his wife about spousal abuse, which she's kind of walked back, but she did file with law enforcement on at least one occasion. Information making it more seeming to be clearer that he was a member of a gang. And information seems to speak to what Caroline Levitt raised the other day about trafficking. Now, all could be true, and it doesn't mean that some people wouldn't argue he deserves due process. But clearly, the White House came up with new stuff to make it harder to side with this gentleman. However, many leading voices in the Democratic Party are continuing to say, we want this fight, which makes the White House extremely happy, but they want the fight. Example number one, Hillary Clinton, 112, goes on social media and says, this is exactly what she's warned about regarding Donald Trump, authoritarianism. He's accused of no crime, had no trial. If they can do it to him, they can do it to anyone. Americans of conscience must stand against this now. Hillary Clinton wants this fight. Jamie Raskin, okay, leading voice for the party on legal issues, 106. Jamie Raskin tells the Washington Post, the critical element of messaging here is due process. My friend Jamie, who I've known for decades, is a constitutional law professor who thinks that I wish the American people cared a lot about due process. Not sure he's right. Quote, we don't have a rule of law in America or anywhere else without due process. And Elizabeth Warren, also this morning on Morning Joe, talking about another voice. We want this fight, 105.
Why are they doing this?
Right.
And the answer is they want to have the American people say it's okay to just disappear people.
Right.
And somehow they think if they can make up lies about him, if they can do whatever they want, then the answer will be the American people will settle for this. We do not disappear people in the United States. Because here's the thing, if they can disappear Mr. Abrego Garcia, then they can disappear you.
Dan, I wish we lived in a country where people cared about due process. I wish I knew the truth about whether Elizabeth Warren was right about whether they're, quote unquote, making anything up. But where are you today? Are you in the Warren, Raskin, Clinton camp? Or should the Democrats find some other fight to have?
I'm not sure which camp I'm in this morning. I think it was Mark McKinnon who said on your two-way tonight last night that when the fight is about getting, gang members off the street and out of the country, it's a great fight for the Trump administration. When the fight is about due process and everyone kind of being given equal, kind of opportunity to make their case before a judge, et cetera, it's more favorable terrain for the Democrats. What the Trump team did yesterday was kind of fire two pretty big political, cannons yesterday to shift the conversation kind of toward the bigger issue of crime. The woman whose daughter was, murdered is heart sobbing. You couldn't watch that, see that, and not just, have your stomach churn a little bit in sympathy and empathy for that family and what they've been through. So I think, as we keep saying, I don't seem to know what's true and what's not. Like every day there's little tidbits that seem to contradict the day before. And I want to trust the Trump people just because I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I'm also always a little suspicious that they're very good at politics and they sometimes say things that aren't true. So,
Sean, based on your knowledge or judgment or experience judgment, do you think the White House knew all along that his wife had made those accusations against him, or they didn't? I can't figure out which it would be. Both seem kind of bizarre to me.
I don't know about the wife. I do know, the gang member part, I think they've known. I think as you dig down, they probably find out more and more. I will say this to Dan's point. They brought out Patty Morin yesterday, and it really is a stark, it was another checkmate moment. Yeah. Chris Van Hollen wants to care about his Maryland man constituent, never picked up the phone, never called Patty Morin to talk about her daughter. His concern about people seems to extend to people who are in this country illegally who commit crimes. But when a crime is committed against one of his constituents, a horrific crime, he doesn't have 2 seconds to pick up the phone, put a postcard together, an email, nothing. That says a lot about when Chris Van Hollen really cares about and how quick he can run to a camera when it's in his best political interest. But here are the facts. We went through them yesterday. This gentleman was in the country illegally. We know that. We know that a court ordered him deported. And this is the Prince George's filing from Maryland. By the way, not exactly a Republican stranglehold here in across the river. Criminal affiliation from the gang unit in Prince George's, Maryland. Subject has been identified as a member active in MS-13. That's the police report from Prince George's County gang field interview sheet that was issued on 3/28/19. So for all the talk and all the concern about a Maryland man, let's keep in what we do factually know. In the country illegally, ordered by a court of law in the United States to leave, member of MS-13, identified by Prince George's County, Maryland gang unit. All indisputable
accused by his wife, an American citizen, of spousal abuse.
Yeah. So
okay.
if the Democratic Party, AOC, Chris Van Hollen, and Hillary Clinton want to double down on that, I say good luck, folks. Go for it. But this is what cost you the election. And if you want to double down on people that threaten the citizens, the lawful citizens of the United States, and to Elizabeth Warren, stop lying and stop spreading misinformation. No American citizen is going to deal like that. That's not a threat to anyone. If you're in this country
but Sean,
legally and as a citizen,
you
do have rights.
But the president has, and again, he says a lot of things, whether he's serious or not. He has talked openly about potentially U.S. I forget what the phrase he used was, but I do see where the party is outraged, because everything you said, right, everything Mark said, what they keep coming back to is, but are you insinuating then that you don't have to follow every procedure and everything down the line?
What I don't
because
get.
he's
when
a bad guy.
And orders you to leave. What everyone keeps talking about due process as if
the judge's orders are mixed. The judge's orders are mixed. But I'll say this: there's sometimes a difference between the law and the politics. In this case, I wish they were the same, and I think they're closer than you might think. This administration is using its leeway to say, you want this much due process for an American citizen. We're not giving you this much due process for somebody who has all the things associated with them that Sean said, including coming to the country illegally. The courts and the politics say the due process for this guy is somewhere over here, and I'm moving my hand out of the frame, right? He's not entitled to the same level of due process. Right. And the people who want to make him, the people in the party who want to say, this is the hill we're going to die on, defending this guy's right to due process. It's horrendous politics, and I don't think the courts are going to be with them in the end either.
But I will say this also. I love people like Elizabeth Warren talking about what could happen to you. Folks on the right for the last 4 years had the judicial system weaponized against us. And to get lectured by Elizabeth Warren about what could suddenly happen to us after she sat back, said nothing, and actively was complicit in what happened. I don't need to be lectured by Elizabeth Warren about this. I'm more concerned about a president and a team that's willing to protect Americans and American citizens who are lawfully in this country and face threats from people not legally in this country.
Few more topics, then we're going to get to your questions. If you're here on the two-way platform, you don't have your hand up, please do. Chris Jones has his hand up. He's going to be called on early. Be ready, Chris Jones.
First time.
Stretch, take some deep breaths, get the dog, get the pup up, whatever you need to do. All right, quickly, Elise Stefanik might run for governor. I don't want to get in a huge discussion about the pros and cons and what it means for Mike Lawler, et cetera. It's one simple question, yes or no answer. Dan, can a pro-life Republican be elected governor of New York? Yes or no?
Boy, this is the one issue I kept saying is her problem. Yes.
Yes. Sean?
A pro-life Republican can get elected in New York, yeah.
The correct answer is if she moderates her position
a
little bit, she can.
It's the one thing I keep thinking is her problem.
Two things about 2028. George Clooney yesterday in an interview with CNN basically said, I want Wes Moore to be our nominee in 2028. Not in so many words, but he basically said we need to elevate Wes Moore. He named a few other governors. Sean, do you make Wes Moore, do you treat Wes Moore like a very, very serious candidate in 2028, having won the Clooney primary, or are you still the jury out for you?
Well, look, I look at a lot of them kind of like you do, which is, look, if I were, I mean, these are the kind of guys that I would say, hey, let's recruit them, send them down on the farm team, and let him play a couple innings and see how they do. I think he's got a lot of potential, like Gretchen Whitmer the other day. I thought it was great. I watched her first couple at-bats, and I said maybe she should go back down to Double-A for a little while.
Yeah.
Wes Moore is one of these guys, I've said it before, on paper, he's very attractive. I was impressed with how he handled that bridge crisis in Baltimore. But again, so from a scouting perspective, I want to see him throw the ball a little bit more, a couple at-bats, but I'm not ready to sign him.
Yeah. Dan, I know some people probably think I'm joking about the Clooney primary. I actually think in the pantheon of Democratic signifiers, winning the Clooney primary is not nothing.
Well, he did kick out the last guy.
Correct. He's a king breaker and a king maker. So, Dan, how much seriousness do you attach to the Clooney primary?
You are always trying to lock down donors. You're always trying to create a little bit of buzz. But as someone who spent 10 years raising money out of Hollywood, they all backdoor to other candidates. And if they think you're going down, they'll jump ship in 30 seconds.
Okay. Name anyone in politics or out whose endorsement, if you were thinking of running in 2028 and you wanted to be well positioned and create buzz, name anybody whose endorsement like that you'd rather have than Clooney. Anyone.
Jamie Dimon.
Democrat. Got to be a Democrat. It can't be like Colin Powell or Condi Rice.
I'm just trying to think the biggest Dem on.
And I know General Powell is
I know Hassan Namazi's on here sometimes.
Yeah.
He is.
My point is, I think Clooney might be number one.
No, he's not, because you know what? George isn't going to pick the phone up and call a lot of his friends. Jeffrey Katzenberg would. Well, it's people who are willing to call in and say, "Come to my house, sit down, listen to Wes Moore."
But I think Clooney brings some of those people to take a look. Like, I think there's probably Hollywood donors today who are saying, "Hey, George is touting Wes Moore. Let's call Wes Moore and tell him next time he's out here, let's bring him by."
It's the best anyone has right now.
Clooney is the bat signal. Clooney is the bat signal. All right, Mitch Landrieu. Again, my jury's out on him. I don't rule him out. I don't rule him in. Mitch Landrieu started a new thing today. Put up 108, please. On Substack, he announced this thing about research focus groups and polling, about listening to the working class and how to win them back. I'm not really sure where this thing is going to go, but no one could look at this and say that Mitch Landrieu is just trying to keep his hand in or be a prominent voice within the party. For those of you who've never seen Governor Landrieu, or Mayor Landrieu, here he is at a rally on April 5th, part of the hands-off events. 109, please.
We knew that we would have battles with our friends who profess to be conservative, or who profess to be progressive, or who profess to be liberal, or who profess to be reformers. We all knew that we would have the kind of fights that our founding fathers expected us to have, but we never really thought, because our imagination wasn't imaginative enough, that there would be a time in our life when we would have to fight for our very democracy. But ladies and gentlemen, my fellow Americans, my fellow citizens, we are in that moment today. And in case it hasn't occurred to you yet, you have been called to the fight. This is not for the faint of heart.
Sean, what do you think of that?
This is not for people that want to shrink. This is not for people who want to be silent. This is a time to stand up, to be counted, and to not bow down.
All right, so I like the guy for a variety of reasons. He's a very nice guy. He appreciates good food. He's exactly as fat as I am, and so I like him for that. Dan, how seriously do you take Mitch Landrieu as a potential nominee?
I don't take him that seriously. I think, look, talking about how we're going to focus group to get an answer, the answers to the party's problems are going to come from people who are in their communities, who understand their communities, and know what is on people's mind and has a plan.
He was a mayor. He probably has all that.
Was is the key. He spends more time in D.C. than he does New Orleans. Look, he's a great guy, and everyone gets a little excited about the idea of a Southern, male, okay, there'll be a moderate just because you hear that.
Chunky.
Right.
Say chunky.
But I just don't see where the party is now. Is he in your top 20? Sure.
Top 15? Top 15?
Not top 10. He's in the 10 to 20. Yeah.
10 to 20. All right. All right.
He's a good quarterback, but he's not Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah. All right. Interesting. All right. My jury's totally out on him. I think that I'll tell you, it's all about the candidate, right? All about the candidate. But if you look at the people who've won, with few exceptions, and Trump is an exception, they've had people around them who've been their core team, who knew what they were doing, who helped them, right? Carville and Begala Stephanopoulos, Karl Rove, right? Axelrod and Pluff. Again, Trump's an exception. Trump had Trump. I don't see any of these people right now that I know of. Well, I shouldn't say none of them, but somebody like Mitch Landrieu, I want to know who's helping him, because they're most of them are going to be first-time candidates. And first-time candidates, unless they're Trump, Need a little like shepherding. Need a little expertise. And I don't see most of these guys having that or gals having that around them. All right, Sean, welcome back. Do you want to tell us quickly what you think of Mitch Landrieu's prospects as a presidential candidate?
I like Mitch Landrieu. I think he's one of these guys like Haley Barbour that I could listen to all day.
Yeah.
Oh, great
But
comparison. That is a great comp.
he's got just a great drawl to him. And again, I'm impressed by him. He did a great job with recovery efforts, but he's not the kind of guy that impresses, like that jumps out at me as like, wow.
Yeah. Mr. Jones, welcome
He's like,
in.
by the way, he'd be a great White House chief of staff to a Democrat.
Yeah.
Would he?
Yeah, maybe. Mr. G, maybe. I think he's a Republican's conception of who would be a good chief of staff. Mr. Jones, welcome in. I have a series of questions for you. Thank you for joining. First of all, is your beard the exact same color as your dog?
Wow.
Or no? Looks pretty similar.
We bought him just for that reason.
Is that true, or are you joking with me?
I am joking with you.
Okay. Where are you located, and what's the pup's name?
This is Benny. We are in the beautiful state of North Carolina.
Where in North Carolina?
Davidson.
All right. Welcome in. Thank you for joining.
Steph Curry.
Yeah, that's right. Very quick. You all have very quick releases in Davidson. Where did you stumble upon two-way?
X, YouTube,
Yeah. Okay.
all kinds of places.
Why is it taking you so long to raise your hand?
I'm a shy guy. You know.
Okay. Well, welcome in. Don't be nervous. How many times have you voted in a general election for Donald Trump?
I have done that 3 times in my life.
3 times in your life. All right. That's a maximum allowable.
Maybe I'll have another chance. Maybe I'll have another.
No, you won't. We're glad to have you here. We appreciate you raising your hand. We love Benny, and we welcome your question or comment.
Well, I just want to make a quick observation, share some things I've been listening to recently, and then ask you all for some direction.
Yes, sir.
So 2 contrasts. Dan, I love you. I appreciate you being on this space. I think the Democrats need more people like you to help us understand what options might be available to us as we think about the world. 2 people, Bill Maher recently, and then just this morning, Ezra Klein on his podcast. 2 contrasting Democrat positions on Trump. If you listen to Maher, he cares about Trump's personality. He cares about his affability. He's interested in who he is and what he's trying to do. If you listen to Ezra this morning, you literally would think Pol Pot has become the president of the United States. Stalin is here. Where's the democratic humility? Where is the intellectual power? Where are the ideas that we can start really talking about that are going to get us to have some contrasting choice?
Yeah, Chris, hold on.
Right now, Sean's right. Sean's right. He's in fuego today. Fuego.
Yeah.
Where's the contrasting ideas? Where can we listen to better ideas?
That's largely a perpetual state for Sean, by the way. I'll tell you that the Ezra Klein thing, 2 people sent it to me and they said, you need to listen to this. This is the best defense of the Democratic position I've heard. 2 people said that to me. I knew enough not to waste my 12 minutes on it. Dan, what's the answer to Mr. Jones's excellent question?
Yeah, and I have not heard Ezra Klein's thing this morning, but I have a sense based on what you said and some of his past statements where he's going. I keep saying it, that the party has got to move past the obsession with Trump, the person, and this idea that he's authoritarian and he's this is tyranny. And I don't believe that. Like, do I believe they're attempting to kind of skirt some corners on immigration to make a good point? I do, but it's an 80-20 issue where the country really clearly wants to see immigration dealt with. And our problem is we just cannot accept it. I mean, again, someone said last night on 2-Way Tonight, like, where is the Democrats talking about there's a problem at the border, there's a problem in the country, and here's our solution to address the problem. Often what we say is there is no problem and there was a deal, etc. So I think it is an issue. I would hope that more people would step back. I think those that will be successful understand Trump, understand why he's successful. and don't try to be Trump, be you, right? Just like I don't think JD Vance can be Donald Trump. Like he needs to be JD Vance. But I hope the party starts to focus on the future and what we will do to help people and not the obsession and hatred for one person.
Sean, except for doing a Snoopy dance, anything you want to add?
No, I mean, again, it's just funny sometimes when they're missing the mark, right? This gets back to this whole conversation we're having now, where it's just part of the election was understanding the concerns that drive where Americans are right now. And the focus is out here somewhere. And it's just, it baffles my mind because I've always when I do like training sessions with folks, basically politics is marketing, right? So you're instead of a product, a soft drink or whatever, you're selling policy or a candidate. And so when you go look at the marketing of a product, you look at, okay, is it selling? Is it not selling? Let's get back to Mark's question about tourism. Why? And then what's the underlying data say? Like, hey, people like this. This is why it's moving. Is the placement good? Are we not? I mean, that's, politics raises money in the way that a product raises money to market a product. And then you think about where do you market it? Online and whatever. And I keep thinking to myself, at some point, you would think that somebody would say, okay, guys, this is what moves people. This is what doesn't. There's so much money spent on data analytics and polling. It's almost like everyone wants to, my team hates when I say this, but I have a phrase over and over again, data doesn't lie. So you can think what you want. It's kind of like when I put Waze on and I go, God, it's always quicker to go right. If Waze tells you go left because it's not fighting with you. It's data. And it says this is how to get there. And right now, Waze is telling the Democratic Party, hey, here's where voters are. And they're like, no, we're going the other way.
Yeah. Chris, I'll say this. I have toggled back and forth since election day about it's the Democratic Party in really as bad a shape as it appears. Donald Trump can screw this up. The Democrats could take the House in the midterms. They could win a surprising number of Senate seats. All that could happen. But I will say today, the party is in horrible shape. Horrible shape. The lack of leadership, the lack of focus, the lack of direction, and the capacity to continue to pick losing fights, full-throated, aggressive, racing into the exploding volcano as if they're going to beat the volcano. People have asked me lately, is this the worst the Democratic Party's ever been? I think it might be.
Well, the only thing I would add, though, is up until the immigration fight, we have kind of been on a little bit of a roll on the economy, on the tariffs, on some of the.
Absolutely, but because Trump is messing up, not because
I hear you. But that's traditionally when you're out of power at this stage, kind of how you get back in the game.
They could be doing better. They could be doing better.
But the thing that was fascinating about the last 24 hours, and Mark, I mean, you asked the question, was it intentional or not? I don't know. But yesterday was a checkmate moment that they get out there. Chris Van Hollen goes in, and I think probably thought, I'm going to go down there. I'm going to be this hero. And they go, oh, really? Meet Patty Marin. She's a woman whose daughter was killed and you didn't call her. Right. These are your priorities. Boom. Number two, they released the Prince George's County criminal records. And it's like, okay, boom. Then the wife comes out, right. Boom. And it was like, I don't know if it was intentional, but it was definitely.
So here's the subsidiary question. The question I asked about the White House. When Chris Van Hollen got on that plane, did he know that his own state had records saying the guy was accused of spousal abuse? Probably not, right? It's like amateur hour. You don't go all in betting on this guy without the data. And the White House obviously had enough data to feel confident to say, well, number one, the guy came to the country illegally. So for a lot of Americans, you don't need to know anymore. He could have come to the country illegally and be Father of the Year in Maryland, and they'd still say, we'll fight over this because he's here illegally. Now, there's all this other stuff about him. Some we know is true, some still up in the air. Are the Democrats doing any research? Is the DNC opposition research team looking into this guy and then calling everybody and saying, hey, guys, maybe this isn't the fight to have. Maybe this guy's constitutional rights are not the fight we want to have. And I know no indication that they know. And I'd love to ask Chris Van Hollen that question. Do you know anything about the guy you're defending?
When you guys, what's interesting is I'm not sure that it'll be totally unpopular in Maryland. It's terrible national politics for us, but I'm not sure Chris will pay a price in Maryland.
No, he won't.
Not a thing. Not going to lose his seat over it, but
no. But it literally was. It's another unforced error. Everybody went all in. Like, hey, it was like, here goes Cory Booker 2.0 again. Spartacus. I'm going to fly down there and help this Maryland man. Look, I think Hillary Clinton. I when the team flagged that tweet this morning, I replied to her and just said, yeah, it's absolutely deplorable. Like it's just so tone deaf how these people, it's true. I mean, Hillary Clinton trying to talk about how wrong something is. It's like, just it's Joe Biden speaking. At some point, someone's got to say time out. We're just going to take a little breather here, get our house in order. I mean, you got David Hogg, we talked yesterday, getting elected vice chair of the DNC and then primarying Democrats. You got Van Hollen down there in El Salvador, Biden giving a speech. I mean,
they also elected a chair who's not going to lead them to the promised land. Let's be honest. The guy might do a great job at nuts and bolts, but he's not going to be Haley Barbour. He's not going to take over the Democratic Party and lead them into a positive place from a public facing point of view. Chris Jones, you've led an extraordinary conversation. We're grateful to you for joining me. We hope you'll come back regularly and be free of shyness or nervousness of any sort.
Thanks,
guys. Thank you very much.
Chris.
All right. Michael Rangel, welcome in. Thank you for joining. Tell folks who don't, oops, I hit the totally wrong button there. Now I've screwed everything up. I'm going to wait for the producers of this program to fix my errors.
You know, while you do this, I will say it is remarkable now that AOC, like all this talk about where the Bernie Sanders energy goes and this little kind of movement to try to push AOC to take it is fascinating.
I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Michael Rangel, and the producers are going to have to fix everything. But while they do that, Mr. Rangel, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind. And thank you for joining.
Hey, well, thanks so much for having me. Long time, first time. So I'm calling from Houston, but actually lived in Bucks County, PA for a few years. So I have a southeast coast grandfather, lived in Ocean City, New Jersey. So been upstate New York, PA, but in Houston. I wanted to give a little talk about an issue that's going on in my industry and then ask you guys a question at the end. So I work in energy here in Houston, big shocker, right? We're the kind of the big capital of the US in energy. But one of the big outsourcing issues is happening in our industry and has been for a while that no one's really talking about is a lot. So I'm a designer. I work for an engineering company and our jobs have been getting outsourced for years now, and it's really sweeping across all of engineering, from commercial construction to home design to energy. All of the big major players in Houston have what they call, low cost offices around the world, whether it's in India, whether it's in South America, and it's really stripping away our industry. And it's one of those things where, like, Dan made a good point the other day about some of the outsourcing to China, that they have tooling and they do have expertise. There is a valid thing to do by outsourcing. But in our industry, we are the better intelligence. We have the better skill, and it's purely just greed all across the industry, whether it's engineering, whether it's designers. Like, I'm a third generation designer that won't have a job in 10 years. Like, my son won't be a fourth generation. So, like, I really wish that the administration would look at companies that are outsourcing work for pure greed reasons. And, like, there's been jokes on LinkedIn about guys like, man, why can't they slap tariffs on engineering companies? But it's a major concern because I'm pro-American, but I'm pro my neighbor. Whether like, oil and gas is a very eclectic industry. So you work with Iranians and you work with Indians and you work with Asians, and I want their kids to go to school and have success.
Michael, let me ask you how you differentiate between what you're calling greed and responsibility to the shareholders of the company.
Yeah, so that's the thing. So, like, again, it's I can't use my words. That's someone, I'm a little salty, as you could tell, but shareholders too. But it's also a tidal wave kind of thing. Like, one company does it, and then another company says, well, if we want to stay competitive with this company, we need to do it too. So my company's not public; it's private. But because of the engineering space is as a whole, everybody moves as a pack.
Michael, I want Dan and Sean to comment on what you said, but if you've got a question, why don't you ask it, and then we'll bring them in to respond.
Sure. My question is kind of for all of y'all is, I know this is a hard question. I don't even know how you really answer it, but I have my own opinions. Everybody does. If you guys had to plant your flag in, like, what's the one major issue for the U.S. economy, whatever, like, that I'd plant my flag and die on this hill for the future of our country and our families, what would it be?
Okay. Sean, why don't you answer that and then give your response to the earlier comments, and then Dan, and then I'll go.
So I think if you've been a long time watcher, you know that I believe that we need to start thinking about uh, how we're making things in America, whether it's PPE, pharma, manufacturing. We are not equipped to protect ourselves anymore, and we face existential threats, particularly from China. So I would normally say just China, but it's not just deterring them. We need to protect our national interests here.
And Sean, do you want to respond to what he said about that sourcing?
Look, I think
Offshoring rather.
Yeah, I mean, I get your concern. I mean, the problem is that I mean, this is kind of the problem with what the president's fighting right now on trade is that we face a lot of external forces that drive down costs, labor costs, environmental costs, and even I know this sounds silly, but as you were talking, if you go into a dentist office these days, they're all getting bought up by private equity, and it's driving cost because they're right. And so what we deal is you get a lot of people now that they're trying to drive the cost down. The service sucks. And I think that that's just where business is. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of these guys are trying to get as much out of companies as they can in a global world. And unfortunately, I will say the flip side is that you're seeing more and more businesses, and I know obviously oil's a little and energy is a little different because of the magnitude of it. But I think that you are finding companies on a micro level that are now sort of saying, okay, we're willing to offer something at maybe a little bit higher of a price because we're going to give the customer more. We're going to say that we're taking care of our employees, and and even like Bombas socks is saying, hey, if you buy a pair of socks, we give them away. Like companies are now adapting their marketing strategies to sometimes offer something or market something as an intangible benefit that you're helping something, right? It's the environment, you're helping your neighbor, you're helping the poor, you're helping whatever. And I think that's part of the give and take of a capitalistic society is that there is an element. I get that it's not, doesn't work in energy as much. It's not like you're like, this refinery is going to offer more than another. But unfortunately, this is the global world we live in.
Dan, where would you plant your flag? And a short answer for Mr. Rangel, please.
So Michael, I've been giving that a lot of thought just as I think about the future of the Democratic Party and what we should focus on trying to solve, what problems, and I don't know the answer. So it's a great question. And I know there are people in the party thinking about that and some candidates that are thinking about it. For your second question, I can tell you that there's a guy in the White House named Stephen Miller who thinks about what you are concerned about every day, because I had some arguments with him 12 years ago. It is true. Companies, particularly in IP intensive industries, are, rather than paying $100,000 to an American engineer, they pay, $50,000 in India. And a lot of these companies have work done 24 hours a day. The sun never sets on the work product because they've got engineers all over the world. And to Sean's point, they're constantly seeking the lowest, the best, cheapest. It's happening to law firms where they're moving, stuff offshore. And AI is about to now approach on even this. So It is an issue that is, again, I don't know how you put the wall up and stop all of this without cratering the global economy. And I wish I had a better answer and hope someday there will be.
Michael, I'll put my flag in changing the way teachers unions operate to be in support of kids and education rather than their own interests. Have governors have a space race to double the salary of all teachers and do everything possible to make the United States K through 12 be the best in the world in public education. That's what I would do. Thank you for joining. Please come back, and good luck to you, and grateful to you to be part of Two-Way. All right, I'm going to bring two folks in at the same time here. Just try to get them both in here. Kat, welcome in. Lisa, welcome in. Thank you both for joining. Kat, you first. Tell folks who don't know where you are after you unmute what's on your mind, and then Kathy, or Lisa rather, and then we'll respond to you both. Go ahead.
Nope.
Oh, Kat, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you. Sorry about that. You work on that. Lisa, thank you for joining. You go first.
Good morning. Thanks for calling on me. I am a first-time caller or participant. And Mark, although I've known you for a few years, the first time I heard about Two-Way was when you were on Megyn Kelly. I tell everyone, I love you all. I consider myself a Two-Way ambassador. And Mark, because of your saying, give the presumption of grace, although I was born and raised a Christian, it's because of you that I feel like I'm becoming a better person. But here's my question. So
right.
Yeah, right. So based on the comment that Mark, you made yesterday that the lawfare has to stop, and then Sean this morning, you mentioned due process. And my question is directed to you, Sean. And if I have time, a quick question for Dan. So yeah, too many conspiracy theories have come true, whether it was Russiagate or the Hunter Biden laptop, the things that are happening with Letitia James, Fani Willis, the list goes on. My point is that there's been so much destruction over the past 4 years, as you mentioned, Sean, and it's not just about Trump. It's more about all of us that feel that we've been through too much. We've been called names, and families have been divided when we tried to say, no, that's not true. I remember the Hunter Biden photos that, the second time I went on to look for them, they were gone. So things of that nature make us, and I say MAGA, feel that we need some justice in order to heal and move forward. And we're not looking for, well, some people may be looking for mass arrests or whatever, but even a symbol, give us something that we feel that justice has been or will be served, and then we can heal so that this won't happen again.
Yeah,
So,
Lisa.
Sean.
Yep. Hold on one second. Lisa, you speak for tens of millions, as we often say here. Kat, let's see if your mic's working. Go ahead.
It's working.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
I-
Go ahead. Go ahead. Sean will
Sorry
respond.
about that.
Sean will respond in a second. But Kat, you go. Tell folks where you are. What's on your mind?
So you got a second Houstonian back to back, or
Awesome.
almost back to
Yeah.
back. I've had something that kind of goes with what Lisa just said on my mind for ages, and it's for Dan. Whenever you discovered that one day when there was the conversation about January 6th and how many police officers died that day and so on, and you had a certain idea in your head, and then like the following day, however it happened, you realize, wait, sorry, I got all these messages that said XYZ. Did it ever make you wonder, like, since that message was funneled into like all of us for years incorrectly, did it ever make you wonder, like, what else have I been being basically gaslighted on, I guess you could say, because it was so wrong to say this many people died that day when, I mean, it was clearly not the situation. I've always wondered, have you ever kind of gone back and thought about that?
Two great questions, ladies. Thank you. Thank you both. Dan first, then Sean. You can respond to one or both of the great questions, and we'll try to end on time. But I'll warn our affiliates we may run a little bit over. Dan.
Yeah, I think about it all the time. Every piece of news I see all day. I look at X. I look at all this stuff, and it's on both sides. I mean, there are things that I see that the Trump team says that turn out to be not true. And it's where people on my side pull their hair out, and my family calls and screams, why are you not saying that on, the show, etc. It is a problem. And I think that, it's why, like, even on the immigration fight, Democrats believe that, like, there's stuff's going to come out, that they're going to be proven that the Trump team is lying, and maybe not, and maybe so. And I think it is so hard in today's age, but I can tell you, I constantly do it. And it's why I take a lot of heat from Democrats, because I am not afraid to say Trump was right or what you're doing was wrong. I totally believe that the Letitia James lawsuit was absurd. If Donald Trump was a regular person, they don't bring that 12 years later. They did it because they wanted a pound of flesh to get him. It was Al Capone on taxes. And she may end up going down herself, which is the ultimate irony. But, I think the Georgia case was pretty legit, in my opinion. So it's hard. And it's hard to have rational conversations with people.
I totally get it.
Sean.
It's tough.
Yep,
I would just say, look, I think I've had this conversation with Alan Dershowitz on my show a bunch. Like, there's a difference between hating and not liking Donald Trump and standing up for the rule. Like, all this discussion, I get such a kick out of talking about due process and the rule of law from a group of people largely on the left that had no concern about due process and the rule of law for the last 8 years, right? We weaponized impeachment. I mean, Dan mentioned Letitia James. Let's throw in Alvin Bragg into there. Let's not just talk about the Hunter Biden laptop. Let's talk about the Steele dossier. So many of the things in the Maha movement. Part of the reason that the Maha movement is so successful now is because we were gaslit. People talking about plastics in food, ultra processed foods, dyes, and told you are the idiots. You're spreading and purveying misinformation. You look at this discussion that we've been having this week about this El Salvadorian resident. It started with the Atlantic talking about a Maryland man. They gaslight you, they lie to you, they spread misinformation to you, and they never ever are accountable. To your point, Lisa, there's not one journalist that's lost their job because of this, right? They all sit there and they love to be the purveyors of transparency. Democracy dies in darkness. All of this stuff, the First Amendment, we talked about it in the briefing room. When Joe Biden and Karine Jean-Pierre stripped 440 independent journalists, not one word. They love to talk about freedom of the press and the First Amendment, but they don't care when it's not them. It is amazing to see the hypocrisy on that side over and over and over again. And yet, to your point, zero accountability, none. And so, you know what? I wish I could let bygones be bygones. And for 30 years, we did on the right. We were told, you know what? Yes, Bork got screwed through his appointment, but you know what? We're better than that. That's not how we handle confirmations. We'll get back on this. And then the Democrats changed the rules. Then they wanted to over and over again, the filibuster's got to go because, well, it doesn't work until they're in the minority. Then the filibuster's not so racist anymore, is it? So I've gotten tired of it. And I'm now in your boat, Lisa, which is, you know what? We got to, at some point, you got to show we're not just going to talk. It's like that quote that I said from Trump the other day. You just threaten to do it over and over again. It has no thing. Sometimes you actually have to file the lawsuit. And at this point, I'm looking to see some of these people held accountable. So, I don't feel bad for any of them. The hypocrisy is endless from the left, and I'm glad to see that they're finally. And my only concern to you, Lisa, is frankly when tech bro Mark Zuckerberg puts on a chain and a black T-shirt, grows his hair out a little bit, and pretends that suddenly it's cool again. You know what? $1 million isn't going to cut it in my book. You got to add a few zeros there, bro, because you made a plenty of money canceling, censoring us. So open the checkbook a little wider, and then you can rent us because I'm never going to forgive you, but you can at least rent us for 3 years and pay for it.
Ladies, thank you for coming on. Lisa, thank you. Kat, thank you. Very grateful to have you
I
both
will
here.
say that the hypocrisy is bipartisan.
Well, to quote my 8-year-old self, Dan, you started it.
Yeah, okay.
Very grateful to everybody who came on today. Great conversation. At least I thought it was. Thank you for being part of Two-Way. Two-Way tonight, we're doing it live at a special time. If you're going to join here on the Two-Way platform, please join us at 4:30 Eastern time. 4:30 Eastern time for the live program. If you watch on YouTube or X, it'll stream the way you normally experience it at 6 Eastern. So if you're watching on YouTube or X, you don't need to do anything different. Just log on as you normally do. But again, if you're watching here on Two-Way, if you want to be part of the conversation, please join me at 4:30 tonight. We have some special guests, which we'll announce in our Substack shortly. That's all for today, as they say in television. Thank you for joining. Dan, Sean, and I will see you in a little less than 23 hours tomorrow for the last episode of the week. As always, our signature losers, winners, and what to look for feature will be part of Friday's performance.
Good Friday. Yep.
Yeah. Sean, stay away from the non-alcoholic sugar-free beer.
Yeah, it's not good for you, by the way. I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
If it's not,
I think you need to have a martini for lunch, man.
Well, there's a difference, by the way, between I've learned the intricacies of non-alcoholic beer. There is like stuff with 1%, and then there's non. But Guinness 0, Heineken 0, and some of the athletics are not bad, by the way. Also tonight at 6, big panel night. Caroline Downey from National Review, Brent Scher from the Daily Wire, and Sarah Gonzalez from the Blaze. So we're bringing all the fire at 6.
All in 1 hour. How are you going to fit that into 1 hour?
Because we're using the daylight savings and pushing it, and it's
got it.
Miracle of
all
TV.
Right. So watch Sean tonight. Watch me tonight at 4:30. And Vanessa, come back tomorrow and ask a question. Okay, please. Yeah, that's you. I'm talking to you. Raise your hand tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you at 4:30 or 6 tonight.
See ya. Bye-bye.